Hi, and welcome back to Free for All Friday. Focal Point AFR Talk, 888-589-8840 is the number to call. Let's grab a phone call to start this segment. Let's go to Hector in Florence, South Carolina. Hector, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Good day to you, Brian. I've been waiting about 30 minutes here. If I could speak a little bit, I appreciate it. I got about 5 quick comments, and I'll leave. Number one, I despise the president and Harry Reid and Eric Holder and people of that sort in Washington, D.C. Listening to you at the beginning of the program, I absolutely despise these people. They're crooks. They know what they're doing to wreck our country, and they want to continue to do it. When the president's a confidence man, and you can't play the confidence man's game, A, and B, you got to drag or make him tell you the truth. And, if you can't get the truth out of them, you discard them. You get rid of them. Number two, every time we had a Democrat in power or any Democrats of any power situation or in control of any situation, they've been slowly conditioning our country over the years to communism. And I say slowly conditioning, a little bit at a time, to communism. Number three, these evolutionists and people like that, people just atheists and so forth, as God's word said, they're blinded by sin. They suppress the truth at any cost. They'll go through mental gymnastics, as Bill Nye did with Ken Ham. I watched that live that night. They'll invent and create any way to avoid giving God, the Creator, our Creator, any credit for anything because they don't want to believe. So they'll do anything to suppress the truth. Number four, we're so out of control in our country, and the reason being, the church has been asleep. They've been not involved in politics like we should have been over the years. We only woke up pretty recently when someone like Obama got in there and started dropping bombs that started affecting our little comfort zones. And we're awake some now, those of us who care about our country, care about God, love God, and have a relationship with Jesus Christ like we should. And we're awake now, and we're squawking because we're feeling some pain. And all along we should have been involved in politics like Jesus was, and doing what Jesus did, and we haven't, and we're paying the consequences for it. And fifth, more power to you and your program and AFR, and more power to Bradley Dean and the Sons of Liberty and the great work y'all do. And thank you so much.
All right, Hector, thank you. That's Hector of Florence, South Carolina. And Hector is exactly right about the church being asleep at the wheel. The church should have been involved in public policy. Do not forget, this is why it's appropriate for the church to be involved in, for instance, in the definition of marriage. Because the Bible tells us that the church has authority from God, and they are ministers of God. Ministers of God. 3 times in Romans 13, it says the state and those that exercise political power are ministers of God. So who should have more, and their authority comes from God, who should have more interest in how that authority is used than Christians? I would submit no one. No one should have a greater interest in how the political authority that comes from God is used than Christians, because we know the God who gave them that power, who delegated them that power. We know what his standards are. We know the standards that public policy should meet because we have the revealed and abiding word of God to measure public policy that comes in and is presented as part of our public life. So we should be more interested in how that power is used than anybody in the world. And unfortunately, because we're asleep, we have less interest in that than most people, and that is, it's just an unbiblical point of view. We're called to be salt of the earth and light of the world, not just to be salt in our own churches and our little holy huddles, not just to be the light of our homes and our little holy huddles, but to be the light of the world, the salt of the earth. So the whole idea as the church is to penetrate every dimension of culture, including the political realm, with the life and the truth of God. And the reality is there would be no United States of America were it not for the church. It was the pulpits that created the climate in the First Great Awakening under Jonathan Edwards that brought the colonies together with a spiritual unity There was a revival that knit all of the colonies together, regardless of their denominational affiliation. There was a oneness that gathered around this spiritual awakening, this spiritual revival, oneness that came through their common allegiance to Jesus Christ and Christianity. And that created the dynamic then that led to the Declaration of Independence. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. And I want to make one comment about what's going on with same-sex marriage. And it's very revealing. Number one, this is alarming when you think about it, but the bottom line here is big gay, homosexual activists, they are admitting that they have lost the battle for the minds and the hearts of the American people. They've given up on that fight. They know they cannot win at the ballot box, so they're resorting to the courts. That's where they're going now. What do you do when you go to the court? You only do that if you realize you cannot get what you want by going directly to the people or even to their elected representatives. Now, there are 33 states right now, 33 states that have laws, either constitutional amendments or laws that prohibit the recognition of same-sex marriage. 33 out of the 50 states. That's about two-thirds. So, everybody's talking about how inevitable this thing is and public opinion is changing. The fact remains that two-thirds of the United States bans same-sex marriage. Geographically, two-thirds of the states refuse to recognize same-sex marriage. That's the reality on the ground. So remember that. Peter Sprague at FRC has done calculations. If you look at the states where the people themselves have actually voted for same-sex marriage at the ballot box, not imposed on a state by a judge like in California, or through the legislatures, but where people have actually gone to the ballot box and they have voted, do we want same-sex marriage or not? Only 4.5% of the American population lives in a state where the people actually voted for same-sex marriage. 3 states representing 4.5% of the population of the United States. So do not forget that. Only 4.5% of the American people live in a state where the people themselves have gone to the ballot box and said, we want to recognize sodomy-based marriage in our state. But here's what they've done. You got 33 states that ban same-sex marriage. Don't forget that. 33 is bigger than 17. Am I right? Like twice 17. So don't think that somehow we're in the minority all of a sudden here, where we still are not. But out of the 33 states that forbid same-sex couples to marry, there are cases pending in 25 of those states. So in other words, what that tells you, big gay, they said, look, in these 33 states, we're not going to be able to get what we want by going to the ballot box. These people, if they get a chance to vote, they're going to vote for natural marriage. So we cannot win if we go to the people. We can't win at the ballot box. So that's why they've abandoned democracy. They've abandoned the Republican form of government. They're not even trying to do it through the elected representatives of the people. That's the other thing that's significant here, is they have abandoned democracy and republicanism altogether. They're not trying to get initiatives before the voters on the ballot so people can vote. They're not even trying to work through the legislators to legalize gay marriage. They are going directly to the courts. So they're resorting to the tyranny of judicial activism to get what they cannot get by going directly to the people or to their elected representatives. 25 out of the 33 states now have legal action designed to get some activist judge, some tyrant in a black robe, to overturn the will of the people. And there are now 5 attorneys generals. This is an alarming thing. There are 5 attorneys general, and that's the plural, by the way, of attorney general, is attorneys general, not attorney generals. But there are 5 attorneys general who are refusing to defend their own state constitutions. They have a sworn duty to do that. They took a sacred oath to do that. When they took an oath, when they took office as an attorney general, their oath was to uphold and defend not only the Constitution of the United States, but the Constitution of their own state. And these states, these 5 states, see if I can run down the list here. Where is that? California, Virginia, Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Nevada. So that makes 6, I guess. There's 6 states altogether now that either have or are now refusing to defend the ban on same-sex marriage in their own states, despite the fact that these bans are either in state law or in their state constitutions. Now, this is a gross dereliction of duty. In fact, I would submit to you, look, if you're an attorney general, you're the chief lawyer for your state, and you discover that you cannot in good conscience fulfill the obligations of your office, then you have no choice but to resign. The honorable thing to do is to resign, is to say, look, I believe in sodomy-based marriage. I think what people do when they have homosexual sex, I think it's perfectly normal. I think it's perfectly fine. I think it's perfectly healthy. I think we ought to celebrate that in our state. And I'm going to ignore everything that comes from the Centers for Disease Control about how unhealthy it is. Don't confuse me with the facts. I've got my mind made up. If you got an attorney general that says that, and so he therefore says, or she says, I cannot in good conscience defend our state constitution, then the honorable thing is to quit. You resign and say the honorable thing for me to do is to step down so that my office can be fulfilled by somebody who can fulfill the oath of office. I am violating my oath of office. I am violating the sacred oath that I took before Almighty God to uphold and defend the laws of the state. I am in egregious dereliction of duty. And it's not right. It's not morally right for me to continue in office when I am failing to uphold the most solemn and sacred duty of my position. It's time for me to step aside and vacate my position for somebody who can fulfill his oath of office. Now, all is not lost. Arizona yesterday, winnable war moment. The Arizona legislature passed a law yesterday, and I believe Governor Jan Brewer will sign it, that protects the religious liberty of Christian businessmen. So Arizona is saying, look, what happened to that baker in Oregon where he could go to jail for simply declining to bake a cake in celebration of a same-sex wedding, we're going to make sure that nobody in Arizona gets in legal trouble for running their business according to Christian conviction. We're not going to let any Christian baker in the state of Arizona get thrown in jail for running his business according to Christian conviction. So don't think all is lost. Arizona doing the right thing, upholding the constitutional right of religious liberty. Focal Point AFR Talk. We'll be right back with Scott Lively in 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere.